Hi, Tory. Thanks so much for joining myself and Rob on the Hart Square podcast today. It's really great to have you on. As you know, we're going to chat on the topic of the people side of change in digital projects. But before we get into the topic, I hope you could give us a bit of an introduction to yourself, your role, and a bit about m-hance as well, please.
Sure. Yeah. Good morning. So yes, I'm Tory Cassie. I work for m-hance. I've been working with Dynamics probably for 20 plus years, and the majority of that in the non-profit sector. So I've been at m-hance about 12 years, and we specialize in Microsoft technologies. So that includes Business Central, Dynamics 365 CRM, Power BI, SharePoint, the Power Platform, fundraising and engagement, and all the good things that Microsoft have to offer, and specifically to the non-profit sector, really. So working very closely with them on their fundraising and engagement solution, in really a whole range of charities, so both large and both small. So yes, delivering successful projects. That's our aim.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tory. Yeah, we've worked together, on a number of projects over the years as well, haven't we? And I suppose on topic, a lot of people that we work with that we know will say that people are the most, whilst we're running digital and technology projects, people are the most important aspect of that. So the kind of starter for 10 is that something you would agree with?
Absolutely. I think that we actually say that the success of a project is 80% people, 20% technology or software. And I think that that's really because people will make projects work. You could configure that the best solution and all works brilliantly, but if people aren't adopting the solution or embracing the solution, then yes, typically people will revert back to their spreadsheets or old ways of working. So we always put people first. We think that it's people that will yes, definitely help to deliver successful projects. And it's about ensuring, as you know, the right, I suppose, change management process and involving them at the right time. But yes, people are key. They've got to want to use the solution.
Yeah. And do you think that your clients, our clients, organizations in general appreciate that side of things as well, that they understand what that actually means when it comes to when you're initiating projects? I know you give that message. Yes,
I think a majority of them say that they do, but it's only when you get into the project that people, I think, really understand. I think there's two sides to it. So one is committing enough resource to the project, and that's being the right people within the organization. So throughout the implementation, but it's about engaging with those people who maybe aren't involved on a day-to-day basis. And the last thing you want to be doing is, here's a bit of training, here's the new solution, there you go, we're live. So I think yes, it's engaging with clients to make sure they have the right resource allocated throughout the whole project, and also for the wider stakeholders and also the users, to ensure that they're embracing the project and they're on that journey right from day one as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because we talk a lot, people talk a lot about making sure the project itself is resourced adequately, project manager, analyst, business expert, subject matter experts, etc., that you need. But it isn't just that, isn't it? Like you say, it's one part of it, make sure the actual implementation is properly resourced, but that wider piece about making sure everybody who's going to be impacted by the change is brought in, and it isn't a surprise when the new solution, the days are gone anyway when we turn up on Monday and here it is, sort of thing. But it is about making sure that wider community, who are the people who are actually going to use the solution to bring the benefits to the client in the first place, they need to be aware and involved from the beginning. Is that what it comes down to?
I think when you're forming when you're forming the project team, then if you're delivering a volunteering solution, for example, then get those some volunteers who may out in the field or wherever, get them involved at the right point as well. So yes, people who are, we talk about fundraising, we talk about event management, but sometimes people don't involve the wider community and those that are going to be impacted on, the project. Get people like, the volunteers on board as well. So making sure you've got an SME, a subject matter expert, or a spokesperson or stakeholder in each of the individual areas as well. But I think in terms of, yes, it's the communication plan, I think, as well. So we've worked with a variety of ways of ensuring that communication is there, yes, for the project team, so the project steerco, but also for the wider charity in terms of how the project's going, where we're at. And we've delivered, and we've got a few ideas of what's worked well and what hasn't worked well in terms of getting that message to the wider organisation. And that could be your beneficiaries as well, you know, making sure that they're aware there's a new project, you know, that's going on, and the benefits that's going to be bringing to the charity, and why you're doing it, why you're investing time and money into a digital transformation program. What's it going to mean to you as an organization? I think that's what's really key. Otherwise these projects can be seen as you know, sometimes take a long time, and you know, you're investing money and you're asking a lot from individuals to do things, whether it's, you know, clean data or test or be trained. So it's making sure what's in it for the organization, but what's in it for the causes as well that you deliver.
Yeah, and I think that's key, isn't it, to talk about, like you say, the outcomes, the impact that the project will have. It's not about having a new piece of technology. It's about what people will then be able to do, achieve, deliver on that basis.
And the change, you know, the change, and it's not the like for like. We're not replacing, you know, a system that's been in place for 20 years with, you know, exactly the same business processes and exactly the same data and doing things exactly the same way. It's that change. And that change is hard because we're human beings, you know, we don't like change. People have been doing things the same way, and so actually to present it, you know, the opportunity to do things differently, sometimes people don't always embrace that, and that's part of the project and you know, the delivery of the solution as to how we can, you know, encourage people to see the benefits. You're not going to, you know, you're not going to deliver everything and tick every box for everybody, but making sure that, yeah, the business change is adopting the new ways of working.
Yeah, I think that's also why it's really important, like you say, to get a range of people from each of the business units involved, but to get them involved early so that they can contribute to the change, as opposed to feel like, okay, now you have to do things differently because the project says so. Yeah,
that's right.
So, like you say, it is about driving change, but if we can get everybody involved early on, so they are influencing it at least. You know, like you say, not everyone can have everything they want, right? That's just impossible. But everyone feels both that they get to influence certain areas and they understand why certain other things can't happen. Is that also
That's
key
right.
there?
I think so. Yeah. And there's always a number of ways to achieve something, right, as well, you know, especially when you're looking at platforms, you know, there's always, you could achieve it this way, you could achieve it that way, and each of them have different pros and cons, or, you know, or benefits as well. So it's making sure that, because sometimes when you're implementing, where somebody might do something, you know, through a couple of clicks, you know, this particular process might take a few more clicks, and it's understanding why it's taken that and the benefit to the rest of the charity. So sometimes you might be, you know, as you know, in the past, people might just update in a spreadsheet, and now you're asking them to go into a record and do something. It might be, you know, it's give and take really as well. So it's looking at that bigger picture, I think, of why are you asking us to enter this detail? Well, we want this information so we can evaluate lifetime value more accurately, or, you know, we can, you know, put them on this particular communication plan, etc. So it's also ensuring that people understand the bigger picture as to why we're doing things, why it's being designed, why these decisions have been made, potentially for the process to take the way they are going to. So yeah,
and I think that's really important, because you do find, certainly within charities, don't you, that people are very focused on their piece of what they do, you know, absolutely, you know, completely fiercely dedicated to their function, whether it's fundraising, volunteering, whatever it might be. But actually, if the project can be used to open people's eyes, just help to connect some of those groups a little bit better, and then so that applies kind of in a cultural people side as well as the technology then underpinning that piece. Is that?
It does, because, you know, it's back to you know, silos of data, isn't it, and silos of working. A lot of people, you know, one of the, you know, the digital transformation is to get away from that silos of data. So, you know, to embrace a platform so you can have, you know, one email marketing tool, you know, a legacy system, one event system, and what it may, you know, etc. But people tend to work in silos, you know, whether they have their own goals or they have their own, you know, what they need to achieve, and sharing data, sharing business processes is not the norm. So that is part of the change as well. So making sure that people have access to the right data, obviously you have all that through security, but the bigger benefit of that to the charity, if you are sharing, you know, event data with legacy, for example, or, you know, marketing and so forth. So yes, breaking down those silos within teams, should I say, as well as systems.
Yeah, because people can get quite precious about, like, we talk about the benefits of sharing data and it helps to inform better decisions and all the good stuff. But actually, that's one of the things that scares people. Oh, yeah, makes people cautious a bit, isn't it? About, exposing their data and losing control of it almost. That's
right.
part of it. And that's why people sometimes take data offline, out of the main system, like to work on their spreadsheet, in the bottom drawer sort of thing.
That's right.
Yeah. So it really is a big cultural piece around getting people to buy into it, isn't it?
And that's why the bigger picture, I think, is really important. And, when you go into projects, it's not necessarily, just building the solution, for events or for legacy or for fundraising. It's looking at having the project objectives and strategy in place. And obviously, ensuring that you're not just building a solution to meet functional requirements now, but actually where the organization wants to be in 5 years, in 10 years, and also being in line where, using that technology as well along that journey on that roadmap. So having that technical sort of roadmap as well as the organization's, strategy roadmap working together. So, and I think one thing as well is with people is, we've talked about this before, is it doesn't stop when the system's live. Mm-hmm. This is always evolving and always changing, whichever system, you're implementing. So once you're live, it's not, that's it, move on. It is very much like, well, what can we do next? How can we extend this bit? And obviously the business and the charity will change, and ensure you've got that flexibility as well. So it's that business and that people change management is a continuing journey, really.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, and if you've got those people, the key people kind of involved and brought in during the implementation, then they are the ones, like you say, who are then going to start being able to use the system, and they'll actually then start being a bit more creative and innovative about what else it can do, won't they? So they then help to drive the ongoing enhancements.
Yeah, people always, sometimes say, well, there's no one in the organization who we think will be able to make some of these changes, or but actually they do come out throughout the whole project. You'll get these real champions, and they are the people that will end up, creating new business processes and changing entities and extending the solution. And that's what we really want. We want clients to be self-sufficient and to be able to extend it. So yeah, embracing it and being innovative and thinking, what else can, what can we do next? Whether it be machine learning, artificial intelligence, or the data side of things. But people, if you can find those people in your organization that are going to really embrace it and want to become that power platform, person and own it, then yeah, hold on to them. They're invaluable to your organization.
Yeah, I think it's one of the great things about the project, though, isn't it? That it brings people through who you didn't, the client didn't necessarily know that they were of that mindset, but you give people an opportunity to contribute, to be listened to engage with it, and suddenly they are, like you say, championing it, and they're feeling really creative and innovative, and that really enhances the organization as a whole as well, doesn't it? So it's a real positive for any client who takes that on and can be open to bringing those people in.
And we're not talking development here with the solutions that are available today. They're not people aren't developers. It's within the organization. It's not necessarily the IT team that owns these solutions anymore either. Obviously they will have an input, and there's obviously governance that needs to be put in place, but ultimately people within the organization that you might not have thought of would embrace such a solution, whichever solution. Then yeah, they do tend to come from a non-IT background, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I think it's something you said earlier, actually, which is about that it's actually, we've talked about people a bit, but it's about the processes side of that, isn't it? That's what changes, the organization's changing its ways of working. It's about different processes. And again, the technology is, so you open people's eyes to what technology could help them to do, and then they get creative about reworking how they do things. And like you said, that's not an IT thing, that's not a techie thing, is it? That's somebody who's really engaged in what they do, really focused on the cause, and wants to be able to do it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we always, I know this podcast is about people, but it's people, data, and processes. And they all go hand in hand, really. It's you can have the best processes, but if the data's not there and the people aren't trained, you have the people trained, but if the data's not right and the system doesn't work. So yeah, those, I suppose, three elements that are pretty key. But yes, making sure those people are on board, enthused, excited, can see the change, because these projects are hard work, and there'll be bumps on the way, you know, but it's making sure that, you know, the people that you work with on both sides, you know, that they're open and they're honest and overcome those challenges. But I think it's making sure that, you know, the people within the organization can see the end goal continually, and that's through, you know, celebrating small successes, you know, along the way, you know, maybe having a, you know, a different phased go live, you know, over a number of months, rather than a, you know, if you look at it like a 3-year project or something like that, you think, gosh, you know, will we ever get there? And you do get that project fatigue. So it's, you know, making sure that you get some, you know, some really good quick wins along the way.
Yeah, I think also it's important. You talked earlier about the, you know, the importance of having a communications plan and delivering it, making sure that various, you know, internal, external, within the project, outside the project, is aware of what's going on. I think it's really important to not let that drift when, you know, when things start to get a bit sticky. We certainly see clients start to sort of clam up a little bit, they're less confident talking about the project.
Yeah.
When actually, I would argue they need to go the other way. You know, the leadership actually really needs to stand up then and keep the focus on the event, the strategic goals, you know, and be out there talking about it, even in the face of difficulties within the kind of the delivery of the project. Do you see that kind of challenge as well when you're running projects?
I think on the communication side, I think, you know, well, our sort of philosophy is, you know, to be open and honest, and that's within the project teams in m-hance and, you know, within our customers and throughout the projects. But I think, you know, definitely on the change management or the communication side of that is to be open and honest, because otherwise, you know, you'll just lose trust and faith in the project altogether. If, you know, you've got everyone saying, yes, project's great, and underneath, you know, that's not, you know, what we think. So I think, yes, you know, there has to be that regular communication, and however it is, you know, people deliver it in a number of ways, is, yes, absolutely, to be honest. And also gives the option for people to be able to ask questions about the project who aren't necessarily on the project team.
Yeah.
So we've got one client at the moment, they've created a really, it's a widespread project, global project. So there's an intranet that's been created to the project itself, and you can ask questions and answers, and you know, they're putting we're putting screenshots up to where we are in the project, so people can actually, they're not getting their hands on yet, but they can see things are being delivered, you know. And I think it was a lot easier pre-lockdown. And I said to myself I wasn't even going to mention the pandemic or lockdown, but it, you know, we had a client that had a volunteer come in, and on the wall, massive wall in the office, they basically had a big, you know, some cartoons and different pictures of different milestones where they needed to be. And then it was like a road in between, and they would colour in the road as to where they are on the journey, you know, to
nice.
go live.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways, you know. And I think also we've had you know, at the end of a particular sprint or build, we've come in with a load of pizzas, and, you know, in an open plan office, people have come and just been able to demonstrated where we're at, and people can then just ask questions or raise concerns, really. And it is easier, I think, when you have that, people are together and they see, you know, our team floating around the office and, you know, in a meeting room doing stuff. Whereas when it's remote, people can't see anything. I think, is anything happening? And so, yeah, definitely important. We've had number of our clients have also had sort of, you know, weekly or bi-weekly sort of an hour session, which is just a Q&A. So anybody in the company or the charity could just go and ask questions and things like that. So lots of different ways, but yeah, getting those people on board will stop that project fatigue, be able to them, you know, to ask questions, and, you know, with the project teams, be able to answer them honestly.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. That point that the communications has to be two-way, doesn't it? It can't just be broadcast. You can't just be telling people what's going on, or what you want to tell them, sort of thing. You have to be open, and whether that's kind of town hall meetings, or nowadays, like you say, maybe all staff virtual meetings, one way or another, you have to find tactics. Actually, that's a point, actually, that's interesting you're saying about. So is that a client who has set up an intranet specifically to communicate around the project, or an aspect of it? Because we often see clients who would say, well, they want to communicate, but to keep it within their existing kind of communications methods. So it's an interesting approach, like say, to set something up like that.
It was an intranet site they've set up, which is great. They're in different time zones as well. So it's the best way.
Oh, global client. Yeah. Sorry, you said.
but it enabled anybody to really, I suppose, chip in and add value for people that weren't, they weren't, the project team could only be of a certain size. You can't have everybody, but everybody wants to have a say. So it was a forum as well to be able to ask certain questions, which was really, really key. So that's why it was more of an intranet rather than I don't think we'd ever have got everybody on a call at the same time. We couldn't manage that. But it's a good way. They're pushing communications out that way in terms of where we are with the project, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's good, because that is, like you said, it's really open as well, isn't it? Because it encourages feedback, and then people see that feedback gets respected and addressed and replied to. Not everything can be adopted, obviously, but at least people will give a response of some sort, which is what a lot of us are after, isn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And a project name, we always say the first thing to do is we've come across some good names in the past.
Do you care to share at all? Or?
I had Project Eureka,
did you?
Project Beehive, Project Spot. At the moment, Project Springboard.
Okay.
So it's not too bad. So I
like Beehive, actually.
Yeah. Coming together, you see.
Yeah. I like that.
Most people have like a Greek god or something as well.
Yes.
Project Hero or something, I don't know, but it's give it a name, so it's actually got it means something. It's a name. Like you say, it's an identity, isn't it? So that people talk about it by name, and it gives it that character, that bit of life. Do you think as well that there's something about when you're thinking about the makeup of a project team, so talking about the people that are involved in that, do you think clients should kind of actively seek out some natural change resistors to bring them in as part of that, as part of the kind of the closer team, if you see what I mean? So you get a balance between enthusiasts and naysayers, and they're always the challenge, you see, Rob. I think when you're putting people together and they say, we won't have Bob because he's really loves the system or doesn't want to move or resistance change. And we're like, no, actually let's have Bob, because everybody needs a Bob, and you need to have that balance and listen to them. It's a challenge, because you ultimately you want them to then be the champion. You want them in a number of months' time to say, this system's brilliant, I can do this, I can do this so much easier, I can get to this data, etc. So it's actually, they're pretty good to have on in terms of to work with them, to really work with them. And they're probably sometimes they're really valuable. They've been with the organization a long time. And it's about valuing those individuals that have stuck through, many years. They've been doing something a certain way. It's because they've used the system a long time.
Yeah, and like you say, they've used the system a long way. They know what works in that context as well, and they're absolutely committed to to the right, to the client, to the organization they work for, to the objectives, to the outcomes. So they that it comes from a good place, even if it's not always expressed in that way. Some up front at least. I think the other thing we find then is that, like you say, 6 months down the line, because Bob is influential, right? People listen to Bob, because he's been here and he knows this stuff. If you've turned him round, so he's now your enthusiast, then he can bring a hell of a lot of people with him as well. More so than the kind of natural champion. Sorry.
Yes, we would always want to, a combination, but definitely those that, combination of those that don't want to change and those that have got so many ideas, they want to do absolutely everything, and then you're trying to pull them back, aren't you, a bit, and you're trying to bring the Bobs up a bit. So it's definitely a case of a combination, and they can work really well together. So especially throughout I suppose the workshops, the analysis, the scoping, discovery phase to start with. That's when that's when you first start to work with an organization, the relationships, and start to build. And throughout those workshops, you get to know people and their ways of working and how we can help them. So we need a real mixture. We want people to be vocal as well. We're not just going to sit there and say yes to everything. We don't want them to just sit there and say yes. It's got to be interactive.
I think that's where your experience comes into play as well, isn't it? Because you know the value of that. So you will, in those discovery sessions, you'll be encouraging people and then showing them that their opinion matters. That's a kind of key thing at early doors as well.
listening. Those workshops, it's not us presenting, it's listening really. And I think, whilst we know the solution inside out, they know their charity inside out, and it's a massive exchange of information. They need to know more about the capabilities and limitations of the solution, and we need to know more about the charity, their current ways of working, and use that to to then bring in these to-be ways of working. So it's a huge exchange of information, and you need characters in there of all types really to make it work and make it fun. It has to be fun. I think otherwise, as I said, and I'll always say and be honest, they're hard work, and discovery is hard work. Ensuring you've got attention, ensuring that it's interactive, it's two ways. Because you'd have a couple of people in the room from partner side trying to think of what the solution is going to be. So yeah, they're hard work, but making them fun, and if that means bringing donuts, so be it. But it's just about getting people to enjoy the project, really.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I've just been sitting kind of listening to yourself and Rob discuss all of that. I find the people side of things really interesting, and I'm getting the gist from what you're saying. It's really important to do the project with people and not at people. That seems to be quite sort of fundamental in all the communications and everything that you do. It's just to bring everybody along with you and just really show them the benefits, really. I was just kind of conscious of time and thinking, in our today's current context, and the global and even national challenges we face, where organisations often seem to be forced to do a lot more with less and pulled in lots of different directions. Just wondered, from your perspective and working with your clients, if you've seen this affect their willingness and ability to sort of do that change piece, or is this just motivating them even more, potentially on the other side?
I think that's where a digital transformation program is motivating them to be able to do more with less, and adopting the technology side of things, and whether that's through automation of integrations, whether it is more down the AI side of things, whether it's more through investing a bit more maybe into data warehouses and reporting and analytics. And we do engage with organizations. There's lots of manual work, rekeying of data, spending days putting a report together or collecting data. So it's I think people now are actually trying to think of yes, we're going to try and do more with less, but that means we need to embrace more of the technologies that are out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't there's no way that you're always going to be able to have API seamless integrations to every single system that's there. We know sometimes the quality of data that can come from third-party systems, that needs some time and effort before it can go into a system. So it's a case of people are trying to do more with less, and to do that, I think people are starting to look at, okay, let's look at our data. It's about data. People are this year and the end of last year, we've seen a lot more focus, and our project's been a lot more focused on leading with data. So I think you'll find, Rob, I think you'll agree, we spoke about this, is that, again, you could have the best, solution configured, but if the data is not right, you've lost people's trust. And then people will then go back to spreadsheet, and then you don't have the data to be able to do what you want to do, be it impact reporting or customer journeys.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the projects are about making data more available, making it more visible. So if it's not of good quality, that kind of sets you back rather than taking you forward, doesn't it? And that's internally, that's with your members, supporters, external stakeholders, whoever it might be. If your impact reporting is out, then you could potentially damage your fundraising channels, so hugely important.
So I think people are looking, our experience then is, not all data needs to be in your CRM system as well, because that data costs money in the cloud. So that the more you store in there, the more even documents you attach, or the more things you do, it will just increase the price of your storage, whichever platform. So that's why people, I think, are also saying, well, actually, where is the most cost-effective way? Where's the best way to put our data? Where's the best way to get our analytics and real-time reporting? data. So I think people are looking outside that a bit more.
Yeah, and I think with the technology the kind of technologies that you can help clients to onboard, it enables them to process more data, to make more, because one of the other challenges is systems for the last sort of 15, 20 years have been all about helping you to collect data, collect more and more and more, and you can hoard it. Yeah. And now the house is full, right? And you can't find your way out to the door anymore. So yeah, those new tools coming through, like you say, and kind of turn that around and say, actually, let the computer do the work, pull out the important stuff, you give it some guides and frameworks, and then it becomes really valuable for decision support.
Yeah, people, the charity is renowned for having, we've got all the data, we've got everything. You have all the data probably going back, a good number of years, but it's knowing what to do with that.
Yeah,
exactly. So yeah,
exactly that.
So
great. Well, thank you so much for that. We always find data comes in part of every conversation we have. So we hone into our audience that it is very fundamental. So it's a big key player to projects. So yeah, I'm not surprised we're ending on data on this one as well. So but yeah, just want to thank you so much for joining myself and Rob again today. Yeah, it's been really great to get your thoughts and perspective on this topic. So yeah, just really grateful for you spending the time with us today. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for inviting. I love talking about it. So any opportunity. Quick.